Hi, everyone. Today we are going to go over the buyer consultation checklist. Here is your checklist. It includes the list of all the documents that are required for your buyer consultation. We'll start with the buyer brokerage agreement, which is residential exclusive right to represent agreement. I'm not going to read all the documents to you. Please take the time to read and understand all of your documents so that you have enough knowledge to present them to your client in a confident manner. If you have any questions about things that I'm not specifically going over, feel free to reach out and we'll get you fixed up. So you're going to start with the date of the meeting of your client. You're going to fill in the date that the agreement starts. Going to enter the buyer's name or names here. For the term, you're going to enter a calendar date, which is usually 3 to 6 months in the future. It can be a single day. It can be a single property. This is whatever's going to make the buyer comfortable, but you need to have something in place to legally represent them in the purchase of a property. Okay. Read through all this and understand it. Make sure you get the buyer's initials at the bottom of page 1. Page 2 goes over compensation and such. And again, have the buyer initial it. At Coastal Town, we do not do dual representation. However, this document explains what it is, so the buyer has the knowledge. Again, we want educated clients. Goes into the designated representation, which is what we do. If the buyer is a licensed agent in Virginia, you need to check this line. If they are not, you check this line. But if they are, and you check this line, you need to enter their license name on this line so that we have that, because we have to disclose it in the purchase. Have the buyer initial at the bottom of the page. Talks about equal opportunity, recordings, etc. Continuing on. Have the buyer initial at the bottom of the page. The last page covers all of their contact information, your contact information, and the brokerage contact. And again, initials at the bottom of the page. So this is your buyer brokerage agreement. If you've got a person who does not want representation, for instance, you've got a listing and a buyer comes in and they want to buy it unrepresented, you would have them fill out this form. So that means that the buyer is not represented by you as an agent or Coastal Town as a brokerage. And they acknowledge that. You would print their name. This is the unrepresented party, the address if it's applicable, Coastal Town, and your name. And then most times you're going to click that you represent the seller because this is an unrepresented buyer coming to your listing. And then have them sign it and you sign and date it. So that is the unrepresented party form that you could use instead of a buyer broker form. Next is the Consumer Disclosure Information Form. We refer to it as the CDIF. It goes over all of the doom and gloom that happens in real estate. It's got a lot of information in it. You need to understand it, have the buyers read it. This is kind of your warning label type scenario. Anything that's gone wrong in real estate and has had some sort of a court case come up about it gets put on this form because we need to make the buyer beware of all of these things that can happen in the real estate transaction. Have them initial at the bottom of page 1. Again, going through all of the things, initials at the bottom of page 2. Title insurance, aircraft noise zones, permits, covenants, initial at the bottom of the page. More stuff. Initial at the bottom of the page. The polybutylene pipes, septic tanks, settlement service provider, initial at the bottom of the page. All these lovely things that the buyer needs to know about, since Virginia is a buyer beware state. Initial at bottom of page 6. And we get to the last section on page 7, where everybody signs it, including you as the licensee. Okay. So there's your consumer disclosure information form. The next one is the summary of rights and obligations. It is an additional CDIF, basically, CDIF. It covers more things. This, however, is referred to directly in the purchase agreement, and it says in there that you have provided this to the buyer. So this also, have the buyer read it, go over it, initial at the bottom of page 1 and 2, after you go through all of the items. And then page 3 only requires the buyer's signature and date. Okay. Then we have our office cybersecurity notice, notifying the buyer of all of the cyber issues that can happen, and to definitely be vigilant with their money. Have them sign and date. Then we have our escrow agency notice. Coastal Town does not ever hold escrow or EMD. That always goes to the closing agent. So whatever attorney or title company is doing the closing should be holding the earnest money. And we have a relationship with Jones Walker and Lake. That's who we would like you to use. If you are not using Jones Walker and Lake, then you would need to change this information, but this is populated here for you because this is our preferred attorney. And it's the attorney who is there for us at all times and answers our questions, even when we aren't necessarily representing a client that they're answering the question for. So then have the client sign and date. Then we have our affiliated business disclosure for title insurance. And this is a document required by law that notifies the client that we have a relationship with Tomahawk Title, who is associated with Jones Walker and Lake. So even if they are not using Jones Walker and Lake / Tomahawk Title for closing, we are required by law to notify them that we have a relationship that has financial and other benefits for us. They must sign this document. They are not required at all to use Tomahawk Title or Jones Walker and Lake, but they do have to acknowledge that we have told them that we have this relationship. So again, they do not have to use these people, but they have to acknowledge that we as Coastal Town Realty have a relationship with them, and it's required by law that we disclose that relationship. That is what they are signing. They are not agreeing to use them. So make sure you know how to explain that to your clients. Then we have the EPA booklet on lead-based paint. Please have the buyer initial that they have received this booklet. Again, we're educating. You don't know when you have your first meeting that they're not going to buy something that was built prior to 1978, and they need to have the information as they go through the purchase process. And having them initial it guarantees that we know that they have seen it. And it's quite a long document, but it really is easily and well explained. So it's easy for them to understand and have the knowledge about what they can expect if they buy a home built prior to 1978. And that concludes the buyer consultation package. Again, you have the checklist. The forms are all in the buyer consultation checklist within Brokerment. So everything is there for you and is ready to go.